All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Journey on the Podcast. I'm Ben Sanguinetti, and this is my good friend, Nate Jones. And as always, we are here today to serve the world by talking about our own experiences, because we believe that life is a journey, and we all need to have a little bit more fun. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend, Nate here, and he's going to start us off with a little meditation to get things going.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so we'll just do like a simple kind of settling in, and just simply follow your breath. So if you want, if you're in the position to, close the eyes. If not, no worries, leave the eyes open. And then just start to breathe in and out through your nose. So breathe in and out through your nose if that's comfortable for you. And it's a really simple thing to breathe in and out through the nose, but it has some pretty powerful effects actually. It slows down the breath. It stimulates a little bit more of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is, to relax, rest and digest, create. And actually it is a vasodilator and opens our veins up a little bit more. So you might start to experience a more even and kind of alive flow of blood through your body. So just give you something to chew on as you just kind of feel the breath and just feel the amazing effect that it has just to follow a few deep conscious breaths. And a few more. Just noticing the opening effect of the inhale and the settling effect of the exhale. Alright, very nice. So whenever you're ready, just let the eyes start to open. And if you want to even open the eyes, go nice. And as always, feel free to follow your breath throughout the whole episode. It's always nice. Okay, cool. So we have a pretty cool topic today, and it's on past lives. And this is a topic that's honestly still pretty new for me. Like I go to Ben a lot for my questions and like to hear about his experiences, because he's had some pretty far out or deep in experiences, I guess you could say. And I know that the information he's got from his past lives has like really helped him, in this life, just like see things differently. And at the end of the day, like if something can help you see something differently, then I think that that's really all that matters. Like I tend to kind of get logical sometimes, and I think about like, well, what is this actually? This is stupid. But it's like, as long as it helps you be more open and loving in this life, then who cares what it is? So Ben, I'll go ahead and just kind of like, that really introduce us to past lives.
Yeah, and we'll jump into it, and I love what you're saying about it. And first thing I want to say is this is actually a perfect topic for what we've always talked about in our intro, is that we are really here to share our experiences. And I am not a professional. I am not an expert. I just have experiences with it. Now, I do plan to one day be a professional at this because I do love it. And I do plan to go back to school for this one day when the time is right. But right now is not that time, and I have plenty of experiences to learn along the way. So with that being said, one thing I really want to say about past lives is it's something that needs to be taken not serious, but respectfully. And in the sense that, like, if you were going to go to church you would dress appropriately. If you were going to go to a job interview, you would dress appropriately. So what I mean is, if you're going to do this on your own, take the time to learn about it, understand what you're doing, not think too much about it, but just understand, because it is a very cool spiritual thing that deserves the respect that deserves a lot of respect at the end of the day. And one way to do that is, I really recommend going to a professional. There are things on YouTube and on the internet that are helpful, but I really, really, really cannot stress this enough. Do not do this for the first time on your own. You are calling in a different energy when you do something like this. You are calling in a past life. You are calling something. You're opening portals. This is not something you should just do by yourself. Okay. So for me, one of my teachers and one of my mentors, she helped me. She brought me into different past lives that I'll share about a little bit here and there. And just an example of kind of what you should be looking for in a professional. So my teacher, Brenda.
So you're saying they've been before? I just want to say, don't be serious, but don't be reckless, I think, is like what you were saying too. It's like they'll go into it with like some sense, of like the maybe some intention behind it, like that kind of way. Don't just like, go into it because you think it's like not something cool to do, or you're trying to run away from something.
Right, exactly. And yeah, thank you for saying that, because that is the perfect words for it. And what you're looking for in a teacher is not somebody that just did it, that has done it, and it's it's new to them, or they do it for fun. I personally have gone to a hypnotherapist. She's a spiritual intuitive, utilizing in energy psychology, and she has all sorts of little amazing degrees and everything that goes into this. And so the key word there too, she's a hypnotherapist. So when you do this, you are hypnotized, and you call back different energies, and you go into a past life.
So I want to say there real quick about hypnotized. Yeah. I think that some people might have like a negative connotation with that word. I would kind of like to say that you're actually being dehypnotized. Because most of the world, in like the day-to-day, we're hypnotized. We're just like going through the world based on our past conditioning, with our thoughts we've been thinking all our lives, with all these beliefs that we took on unconsciously and accepted without even knowing it. And then we're living through that thinking that we live with free will. But, part of this whole spiritual process and like undoing the knots and like melting things away is being dehypnotized from where we are right now. So I just kind of make that little point. Like, I know that technically she's hypnotizing you, but I also kind of think in some cool way that she's dehypnotizing you in order for you to open up to this. Right. And I agree with that completely, because being hypnotized, it's basically all it is a deep form of meditation. So you can't do it on your own. So that's why when you Google past life regression, you're going to see, YouTube videos of people doing guided past life regressions. And it's just a meditation, right? But I say to have a professional with you, because when the professional is with you, they help and they guide you right then and there of exactly what's coming up for you. Where a person on YouTube's not there, kind of not necessarily holding your hand, but guiding you in the right direction. And hypnotizing you, I like how you say, dehypnotizing this world. They're putting you in a different place. You are going to a different realm. That is something not to take lightly. And you need to understand that you need somebody that has a helping hand that's been there or done it before. And I also want to say too, the last thing I'll point out. Right, it's important to do it live, because your experience is different than everyone else's. So if you're not doing it with somebody live that's right there to help you, there's no way somebody on the internet is going to be able to understand what you're doing. So that live interaction is really important. And why you need to take it
Why you did not be reckless with it. So, do the research behind it and understand, what we're talking about. I get what some of the reactions are going to be to it is, oh, does this really work? Isn't that witchcraft? It, I don't know, really want to believe this. And what I'll say just from my own experience is, if you don't believe that, cool, great. I get it. No big deal. That is what you believe in, and it's completely cool with me. That's just your belief, man. And that's fine. All right. But I will just tell you, it's really, really cool, and it is real, and I freaking love it. And I love doing it. And I've done it multiple times now.
And also, it's not for everybody. I mean, like, not everyone is going to go through life and, like, seek out a past life regression. I mean, some people will find other things that are way more helpful for them. They're just like, that, like, kale isn't healthy for every single person on the planet, right? It's like different nutrients work for us different ways. Different exercises work for us in different ways. So same thing with this. This might be for you. It might not be for you. For you, it might just be something just like, kind of interesting to listen to.
Right. And if you're not called to it, then I really recommend not doing it, because you're not called to it. It's okay. Not every life is meant about understanding your past lives. That's not what it's about. So I really recommend that if you're into it, great. Do the research, check it out. If you're not into it, no big deal. For me, I have been into it. I love doing it. And I've been really lucky so far in doing it I've done it for maybe a total of 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that, since started doing it. And I've recovered and gone back to 5 different past lives. And they were both amazing in their own different ways. And they all have very unique stories. And they're all so in depth for me that what we've decided is that I do plan to we're going to do a show per past life as things go along here. Because there is lots of different details that are just really cool. And you're essentially, when you're accessing this, you're watching a movie just unfolds before you. And that's what, goes into the subconscious mind, and how this is a big computer filled with data and everything in it. So for me, the first time I did it, it was really heavy. And during my recording sessions, because I keep all the recordings, you can hear me along it. I'm breathing very heavily, and I'm very fortunate and grateful for the teacher that I had that kept me in it, kept me walking through it, because it is very intense, strong energy. And having somebody with you that understands that to walk you through it was the most important thing for me when I first did it. And as things went along and I continued to study and continue to understand what energy was and how it works through us, that's when I was able to control and really harness things to get to my most recent past life, which was one of the strongest that I've recovered. I feel like everything I was learning up to that point was to get to that past life. And I've learned something different from all of my past lives. And they're all really unique and really beautiful in their own different way. And so the lives that I recovered, I just call them, the first one was the mobster. The second one was the witch. The third one was the pirate. The fourth one was the prince, and I call him the prince because he was some kind of high up dude in Egypt. I don't know what he really was or his ranking though. And the last one was the monk. And all of them were absolutely incredible and very, very unique. And they all had a different energy around them, and they all were very strong in their own way. And from one of them just living in the forest most of their life to another one living in royalty, I've taken something from each and every one of them that I've brought into this present life that I'm in today. And that's the most important thing, that why I love past life regression and why I love learning about it still is that I think it really helps unlock certain things about the lives that we're in right now, to understand what our purpose is and what path we're supposed to be on. And that's why what I mean too about, they're all unique in their own different way. They all had different stories. They all had different journeys. They all had different lives. They all were part of a different movie. And that's really important to understand of how special our lives are right now. The really cool one that I'm talking to all you right now in, everything is unique, special, and amazing in its own way. And just because one life you're a bum doesn't mean that you were not supposed to learn something in that life. And every single thing that we are doing is important in this world, and every single thing you're doing is part of your purpose. And that's why I really believe that the understanding of past lives and reincarnation is so important for how we go about our day, because just having an understanding of that, you have a little bit more awareness of how, the smallest things are actually really cool and really unique, and they're just really special,
Yeah, I think, like you're saying, understanding, is really, really important. I mean, the more understanding that we can gain, that is for like, our own predicament and for everyone else's predicament, it like kind of opens the door to compassion. Like, if we can understand what someone is going through, or what they might be going through, then it's possible to feel compassion for what they're feeling. And then, like, if you can connect on that level, then like love is just natural, and it's so easy. And like, I kind of find this, so like I've touched upon some past lives in like a much different way than you've been, like a less what do I want to say, maybe like a less intentional kind of way, because I have a teacher who reads my Akashic records, and he just like, mentions to me, just like as he's reading, just like, oh yeah, that this past life, this happened, that happened. And for me, it just helps me to gain understanding about like, oh, so that makes sense why I've been feeling like that throughout like my whole life, basically. So it's like, oh, because that happened, and that trauma was like, like stuck and unfinished in that life, that like I still have it in this life. And now with that awareness and understanding, then I have the opportunity to really like meet with that thing inside of me and then help to release it. And then like in that way too, so one thing with past lives that's kind of like, that put my mind in a bender, is that, so, I'm living towards the truth, I'm going to do my best to live towards the truth that we're all one, and that there's no reason to hate anybody or judge anybody or do anything like that, because we're all the same, at our core. They're all essentially one. So I was thinking, if we're all one, then how can there be my past lives and there be your past lives? It's like, isn't it just all of our past lives? Just all these lives that we've all lived, but we just don't have recollection of? So then like maybe, in this life now, just based off of like your uniqueness in this life, certain things come to you in order to help you deal with your relationships, and then certain things come to me in order to help me with my relationships. But in that way, it's kind of funny. It's like, I don't really think that the words like my and mine to help us more than it kind of hurts us and separates us. So in that way, you can think about like all these past lives, we all can learn something from them, to some degree or another.
Yeah, definitely. And, I love what you're saying with that, because we all are one and we all have our own experiences. And that's the thing. I feel like the toughest part of a lot of people's lives today is being distracted by everything that's going on around them, right? And you have to think that if you did have past life, some sort of ancestor did live just out in nature. That's what they did. They just lived out in nature. They lived off the land. They did that, right? And so everything you already need is just right here in the flesh. Everything you need is that. and everything else
Wow.
we get distracted with, and we think, the newest tech, the newest this, the newest that, I need that. No, you don't need that. You don't need that at all. Now, if you're going to use it for like good, it's good that we're using technology to be able to talk to all of you right now and voice our opinions in that way. Okay. But that understanding is it's fucking awesome. It's really fucking awesome to really understand that, there's people before us that came and had amazing lives, and they didn't need the new iPhone, and they didn't need a new television. They didn't need any of those things. All they wanted was to be with their family, their friends, their pets. That's what they wanted.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let me think here. One thing for me that I could tell anyone that is dealing with thinking that this is something they want to do or they want to look more into is go with that intuition. Go with that feeling. Because when I first started doing it, it was literally just a gut feeling when I first jumped into it. And the first one I ever jumped into was the mobster. And there was a lot of anger, hatred, and a lot of, not great things that this past life did that I was still hanging on to. And until I really went in there and let go of it, then I didn't see a lot of other healing happen in my life. And that first one for me that I did was really like eye-opening, because you go into this different place, you go into this different realm portal, and I remember coming out of it being like, what the fuck did I just do? Like, oh my God. And just journaling everything I can, writing it all down, and just sitting with it afterwards of like, man, that was me. And then you start relating it to how you're behaving in your own life, and like realizing I'm getting angry for no reason at like the smallest thing. And why do I have this anger? Why do I look at this person in this way? Why am I doing this? And it's because of all these other traumas of how I was acting before. So that was a big aha moment for me for the first one I really encountered and I did. And then where it was different for me that I'll share, and also another big reminder of why it's important to do with somebody else, is because who I was with was able to call more forward. And so I worked with the mobster the first time. And then in that same past life regression, she showed me two other past lives that wanted to come forward, but I wasn't ready to talk to those past lives yet. And that was later on, I ended up talking with the Egyptian or the prince and the monk. Now, I wasn't ready though to hear what they had to say. And in order to get to that point, I personally had to uncover two other past lives before that, which was the witch and the pirate. And then by the time I got done with that, I felt called to work with the Egyptian. And then once I was done with that, a little bit more time passed, and then I felt really ready to work with the monk. And that's the most recent past life that I did.
And also, I think what's important to say about your progression is that between all these past lives, that you were doing a lot of work on yourself internally. So like, that you were like opening your energies and building your energies. It's like, I think that like you also went to them and like, they were able to meet them because they wanted you to come, but you weren't ready, and you kept on working on yourself and you kind of like opened up to them.
Right. And that's a great point to kind of backtrack too of, when I first called these energies forward, the most time that went in between anything was the first one I did, which was the mobster. Because during that time afterwards, like I said, anger, hatred, guilt, a bunch of different things came up. I really had to personally work on a lot of those issues for like over a year before I felt called again to work with the next one, which was the witch. And I went on this really cool kind of spiritual journey to start letting go of that guilt, that hatred, that anger, and really release it. And that was the longest time in between before I moved on to like the next spiritual level for me, which was working with the witch, which is a very, very powerful energy. And one of my favorites too. Wicked cool. And everything in itself was coming to me to teach me different things that I was applying to my life. And so this was, I'll say again, a good 5 years of just learning through life as I was learning from my other teachers. And that's something else to add in there. That's why I think this is so cool. Our past lives are our teachers. They're here to teach us things. And it's important that we understand that so we can grow. And I can tell you personally, I have really grown from it. It has really made me a better person to understand how cool and unique all these different energies are. And, I pray to them separately now. I feel their energy separately now. And it's really, really, really cool.
Do you want to that is how you did with the mobster? Do you want to kind of to briefly explain the energy, in each one and then the lesson that you got? Because I love hearing, about these ones that I haven't heard about I've only heard about you talk about them, I think, when they first happened. So I haven't heard about the witch for a really long time.
Okay. So the mobster is one that I actually am still going back to a little bit here and there. Because there's, like I said, there's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, a lot of guilt. And like I said too, we'll go back and we'll break it down at a length from each episode.
Yeah.
But obviously what I can tell you is that obviously there was killing involved and, just dirty business and not so great of things. And what it really taught me at the time was that these things can be let go of. And these traumas do exist within me. And I need to do the work right now to let this go somehow, some way. And after other appointments with other mentors and other spiritual guides, I'm still working on it. That's the honest truth. I'm still working on having, different issues come up with being angry, being resentful, having all this guilt for no reason. So that's why I think that's really important to know that even though once it's recovered, it doesn't mean necessarily just going away. But what's amazing about it is now I have the understanding of what it is and where it comes from. Because there's sometimes, that's the thing. If you ever get into this point where you're angry at something for no reason and you really it builds up throughout your day, and then all of a sudden you realize dude, that really wasn't a big deal at all. Maybe it's the trauma of it that's making you triggered so much. And I never realized until I recovered that past life how much that could really be deep rooted into us. That tripped me out, and that was a huge life lesson for, I spent a good year being called to work with that energy. So once I did that, I kept continuing to study, what past lives is like, the different energies behind it, everything that goes into it. And I was working with a couple different teachers of mine. And this one I say is the most fun, but it was the biggest trip too. And I was working with another teacher of mine. And one day during a session, she just, says straight up to me, she goes, there's a female energy around you. And it's a past life and it wants to work with you. And I was like, what? A female past life? What? And she's like, yeah, you're going to need to do some deep work with this and figure out what's going on. And so I talked to another teacher of mine who specializes in the past life regressions. And I said, hey, somebody else told me this. Let's figure out what's going on with it. Now, when I called this energy forward, I didn't really understand how powerful different things could be. And so when I went in, I mean, this is somebody who was a witch and used spiritual forces and use other things like, we'll call it, nowadays being a medium, Reiki, using crystals. All those things are witch things, right? But that's what this person did.
I mean, Jesus, weren't people considered witches if they were just like they're really in tune with nature and they would just like
right.
Enjoy being with like trees and animals and stuff?
And I love that you bring that up, because that was the next thing I was going to say. This is why I think that the energy was honestly my favorite and the most fun, because when I first went in, I see this woman there, and literally she is just dancing in the middle of a forest, and like so pumped to be in the middle of a forest with nobody around her, just dancing. And I was like, what the actual hell am I looking at? What am I doing? Like, oh my God, right? There's just this person, and she didn't look like a witch, I could promise you that. Just this person dancing in the middle of a forest. I'm like, what the hell, right? And to flash forward, because we do have to go into the other ones, obviously she was a witch and persecuted. And what that energy taught me, and what was so badass about this energy, is that no matter how many times people would tell her she was evil, she was wrong, everything she's doing is bad, she always knew that she was right, and that what she was doing was to help other people, and what her cause was, what her purpose was, they couldn't take that away from her and make her something that she wasn't. And she died for that, and she died and was persecuted, and it didn't bother her that she was killed because of her beliefs. And she was a very strong, powerful energy. And that's actually what, honestly, that energy made me really, really brave, that I'm going to speak my mind up and do the things that I want to do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on a podcast talking about past lives, is that I don't really care who believes in it and who doesn't. It's what is a part of my life, and it's an important part of it to share, just like that energy had an important part of her life to share.
Man, I love that so much. It's like, knowing that what I'm doing is rooted in like love, and that no matter what people say about it, it's like, are you able to stick with that? And actually, I was just talking to a friend earlier this morning, just like, it's someone who I'm like on the spiritual path with, that we met through yoga, and she's just like this like super, super amazing person. And like, anybody who's worked on themselves know that you start to change, right? And like one of my teachers said it best, that you become more and more like yourself. So you're not actually changing, and deviating away from who you are. You're becoming more of who you are, and you're just like leaving behind who you're not. But in that change, the people around you won't like it for the most part. I mean, like, a few people that will support you, but there will be people, maybe they're your family, or maybe people who you've grown up with all your life, and they'll see you change and they'll be like, dude, that's weird. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And they'll resist your change, because maybe the thing that people don't like the most is change. And that includes when people around them change, because, if people around them change, it puts pressure on them to change. That's one way that we resist change is by keeping everything around us the same. So if people start changing around us, we're like, no, what the hell? Stop that. Hey, don't do that. And then we start to control and manipulate. So like, as you're doing this inner work and you're like releasing things, and you're really like, coming from a higher perspective, and you start to do things differently, you start to like look at things differently, understand the truth of that change, and try and stick with it, and don't put the other people out of your heart when they judge you for changing, which is, I think, also a natural part of the process.
Right, exactly. And that just goes back to trusting your instincts that you're supposed to grow. You're supposed to grow, and it's not that other people aren't growing around you. It's just that everyone has their own way of growing.
Yeah.
And that's completely okay. Like, to each their own.
Man, we're all growing, but like at our own rate. So some
Right.
people are growing super fast, some people really, really slow, some people in between, but we're all going in that same direction.
We're all going. We're all going, And I had to recover multiple past lives to actually grow and learn. So everyone's different, right? And getting back to that energy of the witch. Yeah, that one taught me a lot, and that one helped me change and grow quite a bit about how we're supposed to be purpose driven and stick to it. And nothing else matters. And at least now I live in a place where I'm most likely not going to get persecuted or ridiculed. Or at least I'm not going to actually get, this energy was drowned. They didn't, so like, how witches would burn at a stake. And then have you ever seen too, this is a trippy part of the story. So like during it, part of it, like I watched myself die, and they stuck me on this big wooden like plank thing, right? And like they tied me down and they would bob me in the water. And I didn't even know at the time that like that's how they would kill some witches. It wasn't just burning them at the stake. And so like I Googled it afterwards, and then like I found this picture, and it literally was exactly like what I saw, and I was like, holy crap, no way. So like I didn't even know that like that was another way that they would like persecute and kill witches, people that they thought were witches.
Dang.
Yeah. So so having that energy called forward was a big shift. That was a big shift for me. And right after that, not long after that, the pirate energy came. Like literally I think a week later, it was like, you should work with this energy. And the pirate one was really cool. He was full of adventures, but he did some not so nice things, obviously, because he's a pirate. And what was cool about him is even though he did not so nice things, he tried to change his life, and he did change his life during that past life. And he actually ended up ended up leaving from being a pirate and went and had his own life and had a family, and his bad pirate ways, you could say, like kind of chased him, and he was always like worried that he was going to get caught because he was obviously wanted for certain things that he did in certain areas. And so like he would like had to hide for most of his life, but all he wanted to do was be normal. And it was really cool because it was a really simple life. Of all the lives I've encountered, that was the one that was one of the most simple lives, because all he wanted to do was chase being normal and being simple. And we take that so much for granted, that being simple and being normal is what a lot of people would want to do, and would not want to have the responsibility of, being born into a situation where you're in like a life of crime right away. There's a lot of people out there that are born in that situation and they don't want to be. And that changed a lot for me too, of understanding and just how the simplest of things are the coolest things.
That was real quick. I just heard a really cool story about this, and that is about living a simple life. And so like, there's like this tourist, and he's on like this small island town, and he goes to like some bar or restaurant, and this local gets up there and plays, and he's just like so good, and the tourist goes up to him after the show, and he asks like hey, how often do you play? And he's like, oh, that is like a couple nights a week. And the tourist is like, what do you do, what do you do other than this? And he's like, oh, now I hang out with my family, that we eat good food, that we hang out by the beach, that we play games and we dance, you know. And the tourist is like, so why don't you play more shows in the week? And he's like, oh, because like, you know, I'm doing all these other things. Then the tourist kind of goes down this road like, you know, that you should do this, you know, play this many shows a week, and you can start making this amount of money, and you can get an agent, you can go and do this and go and do that and go and do that and go and do that. Now each time the tourist recommends something, you know, to the islander, he goes, oh great, the more money, and then after that, then the tourist goes, oh, you know, and then you'll be able to buy a big, you know, house, and you'll be able to like, you know, sign a contract and like make more records. And he's like, oh great, you know, and then after that, and then like it that basically gets past all the fame, you know, and stuff. Then the tourist finally gets to a point where he's like, and then you can relax, and you can hang out with your family, and you can eat good food, and you can play games, and you can have a good life, you know. And the islander was like, man, I'm doing that already. He's like, so why do I have to waste all that time? And like, I just thought that was such a great story.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's kind of how the pirate's life ended, you know, because in that life he was able to live out most of his life with his family, having a simple life, working a normal job. And his favorite thing to do is he actually would tell stories to all the little kids in like the area he was in, and to flash forward of how simple things were for him. Because obviously, you know, what was hard for him is when you are a pirate, okay, or he was a pirate, he would be able to look past the bad stuff because he enjoyed being a pirate still. And being a pirate, what do they like to do? They like to sail. And his favorite thing to do was to sit on a boat, and he'd be on the boat and it'd be quiet and you would just see the ocean, right? And it's just nothing but the ocean. And like that was his favorite thing to do. And it was always hard for him to look past, you know, oh, well, if I gave this up, then I wouldn't be able to do that. And I wouldn't be able to do the simple thing of just looking out into the water. It's my favorite thing to do is be on the water, right? And so he obviously did give it up, had a normal life. And when he passed away, he was a really old man, lived a long life, and he passed away by just sitting on the beach and looking at the water. And like, that was a really serene, peaceful moment to like kind of see that happen and see that unwind. If you have this like amazing life, this life full of bad things, more good things, and then you end up just kind of in the same spot of where he kind of grew up, which was on the water, looking out in the ocean.
Yeah, it's cool too. And you're like, the pirate's life is kind of like, you know, in a really like the violent and the reckless way, going after riches, which is kind of like what a lot of the world is doing, you know, going after riches and going after pleasure. But, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he walked away from the pirate life, that didn't he kind of walk away with it with loose ends, and then they found him again, and then he had to go and like complete something, you know, in order to live at peace? Was it something like that?
Yeah, so he basically ran away from his other pirate friends because he didn't want to deal with them anymore. And he wanted to have a simple life. And he was always on the run because not only was his name wanted because he was a pirate, but also his pirate friends were always looking for him. Because he like had he knew where some of their treasure was that he didn't care about. He didn't want it. But they wanted it. And so, long story short, when they got to him, he made a deal with them to be able to let him go in peace, and they could take all of his treasure. And what I found most interesting about that is he knew where the treasure was almost his entire life before they actually caught him. And he never went and got it on his own and used it. He would rather just have a normal life. than worry about it. I thought that was the most interesting thing about his story. And when that did happen and he was able to make a deal with them, that's when he was at the most peace he was able to be in. Because nobody was looking over his shoulder anymore.
And
so yeah, that was really yeah, that was really unique and cool how we just have to make peace with the past sometimes. And I think that's a big lesson too for all of us, is that we always hold on to all these things that we think are these big deals. But if we don't just deal with them, then they're never going to go away.
Yeah, and like, do we also tend to assume that like if we do deal with it, it's going to turn out to be a lot worse than it actually ends up, turning out to be? It's like, oh wow, that actually went a lot better than I thought.
Right. And yeah, he was really cool. Both the witch and the pirate were really cool.
Yeah.
They were the simplest ones. And to jump forward too into what you think I would think is the coolest one was the prince, or whoever lived back in what looked like Egyptian times to me. And there was like the pyramids and everyone in like cool robes and everything like that. And it was a life of royalty. And I had a huge family and all these riches, and I would be talking to all these people and everyone would be like, oh, what is he going to say? What is he going to do? That one was really cool in the sense that it wasn't the riches or anything like that that was really cool. What was interesting is the lesson that I took from it was that he had a short life. And he wasn't able to experience a lot of things that he wanted to because he worked really, really hard. Because he had to take care of a lot of people. And it wore on him a lot. And he would get really tired from having to take on so much stress. And he had a lot of stress, anxiety, worries he would deal with. And like that shortened his life a lot. And he got sick. He got sick, and they like couldn't figure out what it was. And it basically was more stress induced than anything else. And so yeah, that one was really cool to just understand the perspective that like, we can work hard, but if we don't enjoy life, then then what are we really working for?
Definitely. I love that. Like, joy is such an important part of the work process. Like, I love the I love the example of like the Beatles. Okay, we'll take the Beatles and we'll take Michael Jordan. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Beatles just loved to play music. They just were so passionate about it, and they just did it so much. They like, at a young age they went to Germany, and they were just like playing at the Cavern, I think it was called, or just like playing at all these like the little what we would call bars now, and just play shows all the time, like always together, always like writing music and stuff like that, and they just enjoyed it. That they did it because they enjoyed it, and just because of like the amount of time and attention and the joy that they put into what they were doing, bam, they just like were unbelievable. I mean, they opened up so many doors in music, and they put out so much incredible music in such a short period of time. It's like, this is insane. So they like they really transcended the hard work of the human, and they tapped into some like really, really strong creative power in the universe. And then real quickly, I'll talk about Michael Jordan, because there's like a documentary that was released about him and the Bulls not too long ago, and they're talking about like all the behind the scenes stuff, and like all the business stuff, and just like all the stuff that really is unnecessary, but it happens because there's like money involved and there's power and stuff. But like his first championship. So if you don't know who Michael Jordan is, just like a really quick background, one of the best, if not the best basketball player to ever walk on this earth. So damn good. And he won 3 championships in a row and then decided to retire, went and played baseball. And then he came back after like 1 or 2 years. And then he won 3 more championships in a row and then he retired. The guy is just amazing. So when it got to the 3rd championship of his first three-peat, after he finished, and they won, and he was the MVP probably, that he said that he didn't even feel like very happy. He was just relieved that they won and that it was over, because that he wasn't enjoying the process anymore. That he wasn't playing the game for the love of it. He was doing it for some other reasons. He was like, this result has to happen, or else I'm not going to feel good or at peace. And I was like, wow. Even something as awesome, like if you've played sports, you know how awesome it is to win a championship with like a bunch of guys. And winning the NBA championship, something so cool, he had very little joy because he was just working hard, putting his nose to the grindstone, and it just like took everything out of him, and he retired after that because he was just so like drained.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point, because, that's exactly how my life felt as the Egyptian, is that you spend all this time taking care of all these people because you need to worry about everybody. You need to do this, do that. You want to be the best ever. You want to be the best at your job. And then you end up not even be able to enjoy yours. Just absolutely incredible. And that one taught me a lot about just enjoying life, going for your purpose, but enjoying life still. And it also taught me a lot about using my own voice and being a leader, and also understanding it's okay to be a follower. So it taught me a lot of those things all wrapped into one right there. And then to wrap up, if I'm going to label my favorites are probably the Witch.
There's one more, isn't there?
And then the last one, I will say, I have to say, is one of my favorites, because he put me on the journey and made me see all those other lives before he would let me see his life. And that's what I thought was really, really cool about it. And we're going to go on a little bit of a tangent for this too, because how he presented himself to me was just wicked cool. And I can't wait to do a whole podcast episode about him, because he's fucking awesome. So the energy that I called for was a monk. And like wherever he lived at, the best way to describe it is it looked very Aztec-y, where like it was like almost like a pyramid in a jungle, but it wasn't. And this was really cool because, like I said, I learned all these other energies. So during the time of learning from these other past lives, in between, I had all this experience. And I also learned a lot about energy, how to harness it, how to channel different things. And if I didn't learn all those things, there's no way I would be able to do what I did in this life when I went back. So I walked through this portal, and I didn't describe that too. So every time I went into my past lives, you would kind of walk through a portal and you'd be in this different world. And when I walked through this portal, right when I walked in, he was right there waiting for me, sitting down, and he was like in this meditative state with this big old hood. I call it like this badass Jedi hood. Like he looked like a Jedi, just like tucked in. Okay. So he's sitting there and he's just waiting for me. Okay. And so all the other lives that I experienced before, I would like go through the portal and I would like be looking around, and eventually like I would walk somewhere, I would find them, right? And like they never knew I was there either, but I was like watching them. This past life, I walk through the portal, I walk right in, and he was sitting there waiting for me, which to me tripped me out so hardcore. And Nate, me and you have talked about this. And this is what I mean by, does time really exist? Or are we all just in one big loop? And we have the past, the present, and the future on one big line. And where we decide to have our experience at that time, maybe that's the time that we're in. And so I truly believe that time is just a man-made experience because we're the ones that invented clocks. And if nobody invented a clock, what would time really be to you? Okay? And I always kind of had, hang on, let me finish this thought. I always kind of had that thought and that feeling behind it. And then when I experienced this life, I remember talking to Nate and being like, dude, what the hell, right? And go ahead and talk.
Oh, so you said that time is a man-made thing. I'd like to go a little deeper and say that time is a mind-made thing.
Yes, it completely is.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you know, past and future. I mean, that's only in the mind. But like, you know, also, the time is real for like all the physical stuff. Like, you know, so for example, the body is at the mercy of time, right? Like, the body will not last forever. That tree will not last forever. You know, everything that's here in this world is like, you know, changing. It's like, you know, being created, like, you know, living a little bit and then going away. But like in our mind, we take that so seriously that we're like kind of obsessed with time, and we take it that to be way more important than it really needs to be. And then, like, you know, we have things like needs and wants, and we make deadlines for ourselves. We say, this has got to happen by this time, or else this is going to happen and it's not going to be good. So we just like, one, you know, that we made time, you know, a lot of it in our mind, and two, that we take it too seriously and we don't let it be more flexible. And like, you know, it's kind of funny with like, you're thinking about like the people who are pregnant and like, this is my due date, right? And like, you know, that the baby comes like a little bit before or after, it's a problem because it's like, oh, the baby was too early, the baby's too late. How do we know? Maybe the baby just came exactly when it was supposed to come, but just because of our prediction about this is the right, you know, way to look at time, and if it doesn't, you know, follow our prediction, then it's wrong. It's like, not so. You know, it doesn't have to be like that.
Exactly. And we make it that. We make it into something that it's not. And so why that was a big aha moment for me of, you know, something that always is a theory. Me and Nate have talked about time for like hours prior to even doing this past life, okay? But you have to really think that past life was waiting for me to come through the portal to talk to him, okay? And so anyone that's understand, like I say a monk, right? Obviously he wasn't a monk. He was just some sort of like spiritual teacher, something, right? And he had an understanding of what meditation was, spiritual practice, everything that went into that. And that was his life. That's all he did. And he taught at a temple. He showed me later on, he taught at a temple. He taught young people. He showed people how to use like, he did like Qigong and like a bunch of different other energy work and meditation and everything else. That's all he did. And this guy knew, he had a sense of awareness, he had a sense of perspective, he had a sense of everything else that was going on around him, that he knew that I was going to show up looking to understand that past life. And he was fucking waiting for me right when I walked through. And this is when I love the saying that we don't know shit, because we literally have no clue about anything. We think we're geniuses, right? We think that we know everything, that we're these experts, that we understand everything we're doing in life. We don't know shit, okay? So I stepped through this portal, and this dude is sitting there waiting for me in his Jedi robe, and he is just sitting there, and he tells me, sit down. And the way he just said, sit down, it wasn't harsh. It wasn't mean. It was just like, dude, sit down. I'm going to teach you a few things. You don't know anything. Okay. And this is after doing 4 past life regressions, which is to me a lot. You know, I know actually I was looking up too, the Buddha did like 500 and something, and then I realized like, wow, I really don't know shit. Okay. So then we sat there and like he meditated with me, and he had me like feel the energy, and it was the most ridiculous thing that I ever have felt, that I still continue. And this is why I continue to practice meditation. I continue to practice what I'm doing, because I don't know anything, and there's more that I can learn every single day. And that's really what he showed me. And then to flash forward a little bit, he showed me where he lived, the village, the temple that he stayed at. And like, he showed me like his quarters, like where he slept. And it was so awesome because it was so simple, because all that was in there is like this guru guy, right? And all that's in there, a bed, if you can call that. It was basically a little cot and a little writing table. And that was it. That's all he had. Okay. And the coolest thing about this that I definitely want to share is, as I'm going through and I'm teaching, and he was showing me like students and he was showing me what he was teaching, I look over and another teacher came across from another room. And I look, and this person walks up and they like lift up their hood, and it was Nate. And I was like, what the fucking fuck, right?
So did it look like me? Or you just knew?
It didn't, and that's the thing to understand. Obviously, the monk didn't look like me, but it's my past life, okay? So when I say it's Nate, it was Nate's energy. And we were teaching together, and I remember doing this past life regression and telling Nate after, and like both of us just being like we could feel like the energy off of it, and we just knew that this happened and this existed. And I'll leave it at that, because telling the whole story behind that is a whole episode, and we really need to dive deeper with it. But that's actually a big reason why, to be completely honest, that is a big reason why we're doing this podcast.
Yes.
Is after having that experience of everything I've experienced, and having that last one, realizing that we're here to teach the world, and we're here to share our experiences, share our gifts, and give back to what we've learned and what we've experienced. And even though I've literally said that word 100 times right now, that is what it's all about, is the experience.
Yeah, I think that one was so cool. Like, I remember that you left me voice messages on WhatsApp. They were like maybe 15 or 20 minutes or longer, and I was just like, it was like I was reading the best book on tape ever. You know, it was like, this is so amazing. And they're really cool because, like, you know, I was in there too, and like, you know, I think that past life for me, you know, and for you too a little bit, is like, it gave us an understanding of what we're capable of doing, and it kind of like maybe gave us a little hint at like, you know, go and do that, which is something that wasn't, that's something that we weren't already feeling and we weren't already talking about, but for some reason we just like, they were kind of hesitating on it. But I think that after that, we started this thing, which we've been talking about for a while, but we're just like, okay, let's do it. And then also with the men's group that we do, we started to really kind of more collaborate with that, and then like, you know, to really nurture that together. So that was really cool.
And this is going to be an incredible journey. And, you know, this is only episode 8. I can't believe we already did 8 episodes. And I was just thinking, you know, I can't wait to be looking back on this when we're doing episode 800 and talking about all our amazing experiences in between that time. And I think a good recap is, you know, because that helped us get to where what we're doing right now, right? But I think it's important to realize that, as amazing as it is to think to, you know, oh, you were a monk, oh, you were like a prince in Egypt, oh, you were this, you were that. No, I'm me, and I'm special in my own way. And just because that's the past, that means nothing. That's just cool experiences that I have to use in what I'm doing now. Um, and I think that's an important thing to realize, is that, you know, who you were in the past doesn't dictate who you are now. Who you were in the past gives you the lessons to what you're going to do with and experience now. So those are the biggest takes from everything that I've done. The 5 that I've recovered so far. I plan to do more. Hopefully I can catch the Buddha, but we'll see. And and in the meantime, I'm just going to have a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, I think that what we were talking about there is like now, you know, the most important thing is now, is this moment, here and now. So not to get, you know, too caught up in the past, or like all these different reasons for like what caused what to happen. Like, yeah, you know, some thought is maybe okay, but now, what are you doing right now? What energy are you putting out there now? And what can you do now to make this moment, or to be at peace with this moment as best as you possibly can? So,
And one thing to understand about the importance of past life regression, and I think the importance of the past, is to understand the past is to also heal your past and forgive yourself. And the more that you do that, the more that you will have a better future, and you'll be able to live in the present without having resentments and fears and anxieties and everything else that goes into that. So that is the most important thing that you can take about the past. Not to worry about it, not to try to fix it, but to learn from it and forgive yourself for it.
yes. That's a mic drop for me. That's great.
With that being said, let's close it out, brother. This is a lot of fun today. I cannot
Yeah.
wait to break all these down individually.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the next one, when we break down one at a time. And eventually, too, we're going to bring somebody on that specializes in this, too, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to close it out today. And with that being said, everyone, let's enjoy this present moment and close our eyes. And obviously, if you're driving right now, either pull over or just listen and don't close your eyes. And let's just take a few deep breaths at your own pace, whatever works for you. And as you come to breath number 3, try to take a deep breath in and out. And just take this time to just be. Just be in this moment. Because nothing else is going on around you. Nothing else can bother you. Nothing else can hurt you. Because you're just being. And being is how we enjoy the present and have a lot of fun along the way. And we always have to remember that the center of our fun is the center of our heart. So take some time right now to move your energy towards your heart. Feel that energy. Feel your heartbeat. And listen to it. And as we listen to our heartbeat and focus on our heart, take this time to not worry about your past, not be anxious about your past, but just listen to your past and what it's trying to teach you. And it may sound really loud, really distorted, really chaotic. But just go deeper and listen to how calm it all really is. Just enjoy that calming energy. Enjoy that stillness. And just understand that that stillness is coming from you. It's your energy. And we can bring that with us anywhere we go. And as we dive deeper into that calming energy, take 3 deep breaths in. And then let's go back to the best time, which is the present time. And let's slowly wake up, wiggle our toes a little bit, move our hips around if we feel like it, loosen those arms, straighten that back, and slowly open your eyes. And just be grateful for the present moment.
Very grateful for this moment. Grateful for you, Ben. Thank you, man. That was just what I needed, I think.
Thank you, my friend. And that was a journey today. And I really enjoyed it. And thank you, everyone that wanted to be part of the experience. Until next time, everyone, sending everyone lots of peace and lots of love.